Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 239, the Friday, the all-news edition. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. Today's July 15th, 2016, and it is hot here in Florida.
Okay, last week I recorded from Dallas. That was quite the experience, and I'm back up here in Connecticut, and I said I would talk about the guitar behind me. Do I play guitar? Yes, I do.
Oh. Rock and roll.
Am I really, really good at the guitar? In my mind, I'm really good at playing the guitar. It's not a ministry, it's not a gift, it's a hobby. Why is it on the desk behind me? Because when I downsized from a house that had lots of thousands of square feet of room, I had to give up things, and one of that was floor space. So up here in my loft office at the condo, I don't have a lot of floor space, and every week I have less and less because I have a wife and children who rank higher than me in floor space priorities, application priorities. And so as my world gets smaller and smaller, I have to find places for things. And behind me on the desk is two printers. For the longest time, I had just two printers there. Now there's two printers, mail, and a guitar. Soon you're going to find my guitar pedal and maybe my amplifier up here too, as my world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. Currently the guitar pedal and all the chords are still on the floor, but it's out of necessity. It looks nice. Yeah, it's a great to play.
Kevin, we
just
had our parish picnic, and we had a karaoke machine, and you really should have joined me. See, where we are, we have guitars. It's pronounced that way.
Guitar. Yeah.
And we also have these things called banjos.
Ooh.
And someone even brought an accordion, and I know accordions and Episcopalians just don't seem a natural fit. But you and I, Kevin, we could go on the road with our musical act. I'm a great singer. I love to sing Loretta Lynn standards, and with your guitar and some banjos and guitars.
No, I'm an old Eric Clapton guy, but yeah, I see what you're saying, but we tried to raise money for George's new mic. You hear that nice baritone voice? That's not the machine voice we had the last 2 weeks. So I'm glad you finally got that off Amazon. Good for you.
Yeah, we've hired the actor who played Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey to be the second voice of our show.
Oh, I thought it was Elf. Oh, okay, Hal. Wonder. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the news. We got three stories to cover. Canada, conversations in Congo.
And mass murder in France.
More terrorism. That's the sad part it's become the new normal, especially for living in George and I are journalists, and we understand how this happens. Cable news is more like a magnifying glass with the sunlight coming through it, focused on something for 3 weeks until it explodes and burns up like little burning ants. And the terrorists kind of like that. Wait, I'm going to get 3 weeks of absolute news cover to cover. Terrorism is horrible for us, but it's exciting to terrorism, and you're kind of feeding this cycle. And it's just the new normal because Guess what everybody did last night when they saw what happened in France? They turned on the cable news and they watched it. Here we turned it off, but you're feeding into something, and it's the evil of the day. I'm sorry to say it.
I'm fearful, Kevin, of what's going to happen in this country this summer. We have our political conventions coming up, the Republicans in Cleveland, the Democrats in Philadelphia. And I'm fearful we're going to have a repeat of the 1968 Democratic Convention. One of the things that occurred that I thought was noticeable was that Black Lives Matter, for instance, refused to apply for a permit from the Cleveland police to protest. They're going to be there, but they're permitted.
Yeah.
And coupled with that, we have domestic terrorism issues with lone wolf Al Qaeda types. So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Now people send us nasty emails. Why are you guys smiling while you're talking about terror and murder? Well, our God still reigns, but it's going to be a hot, long, hard summer. I'm afraid.
Yeah, joy in all circumstances, but we understand the realities. But at the end of the day, I'm here to glorify God, and I can't. I've never been able to wear the pathos that comes with some of the things that happens, and I apologize for that. Do I feel it? Absolutely. But do I wear it? No.
Well, one of our British viewers refers to us as the Chuckle Brothers, which I had to look that up because I have no idea who the Chuckle Brothers were. But friends, we really are happy people. We really do like each other. We really do love the Lord and love life, and it's not cynicism that causes us to smile in the midst of destruction. It's a knowledge of the love of God that allows us to go forward.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, without question. I mean, we're in the industry. We're journalists. We report on some of the worst things from Christian people, the worst things from secular people, in a world that's collapsing, that has lost its eyes of God.
And that's how we can smile as we tell you about the shenanigans in Canada.
Yes. So, Canada. Do you want to do Congo first, Canada, or Conversations? It's like a Jeopardy lineup here.
Alex Potpourri for 500.
Potpourri, yes. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Canada. As we alluded to 2 weeks ago, that Canada was going to have its General Synod, General Convention, and they were going to vote whether or not to approve same-sex marriages within the province. George and I predicted they would, and guess what? They did. It's how they did that's leaving some people a little bit of consternation. But the fact that they did it, no matter how they did it, is what's important, George. The ends justify the means for Canadians. Little trouble with the vote, though, George.
Well, in the run-up, all the political pressure was put to bear on the bishops on the fence, who were basically saying, no, we wouldn't support this. Because in January, in February, their bishops said, we don't have the votes to pass this. So Fred Hiltz and the Liberals basically twisted arms amongst the bishops. And the vote was taken, and the bishops, by one vote, one bishop switched, one or two bishops switched, but they got them, so they had the votes in hand for the bishops. Mm-hmm. Should have been over.
They were, on the night of the vote, they were going to win.
Yeah, and then
they knew they were going
overwhelming
to
vote in the House of amongst the lay people, but then they lost in the clergy order by one vote, and the clergy were supposed to march in lockstep with the laity. Well, what happened, as I understand it, was that because the political pressure was put on the bishops, the clergy were able to think this through, and a number of them just didn't want to take this step more than were predicted. So we had the vote, and it was a shocker. And Fred Hiltz, I was watching the live stream from, it's wonderful not to have to go to some of these things. You can just watch the live stream. Kevin alerted me what was going on. I watched the live stream, took notes, and Fred Hiltz looked like he had just had the wind knocked from him.
Yes. You're very polite, George.
And everybody went to bed, and I thought, well, isn't this a neat story? Because I was going to write, Canadians support gay marriage, sun rises tomorrow. We knew this was going to happen. Mm-hmm. It didn't happen. Well, during the night, some gay activists...
Just hit decline. I hear that thing beeping.
a gay activist deputy from Ottawa, asked to see the raw figures because the voting was by electronic. They had electronic devices, they called them clickers, that each delegate had a unique clicker with its own serial number, and so the votes were recorded this way. And they found that there had been an improper coding. The General Secretary of Synod, who was a priest, was listed as a non-voting member, so his vote wasn't counted. Originally, we were told that he was listed as a layperson, and that's not that was a mistake.
Right.
And when his vote was counted, he
Keep going. Somebody's using the shower downstairs. Nothing I can do about it.
when his vote was counted, they had enough to make it pass.
Uh-huh.
Now, this was sort of an interesting, little thing because according to Robert's Rules of Order, you can't do that because the chair called the election. There was a motion for reconsideration and recount. That was defeated. That should be that. But Fred Hiltz arbitrarily changed it. And I guess you could say this from a point of view of fairness. That was the intent. But that's not how they run meetings. They run them according to Rules of Order. Coupled with the fact that after the gay vote lost the first time, half a dozen bishops said, well, we're going to ignore this anyway and do what we want to do. And then the next day when they found, we won. Well, hooray for the parliamentary process.
Oh, how sweet, huh?
It's heads I win, tails you lose among the Canadians. They were going to win.
The heavens opened up and a little vote floated down and they got what they wanted. And that's the unique thing about God. He'll give you what you want, whether you need it or not. So,
the thing is that we expected this outcome. But what was made manifest was the lack of integrity in the process and the lack of moral foundation.
It's hard to find the word.
I'm trying to be polite. If a bishop basically says, I am going to ignore the outcome and do what I want to do because God has spoken to me, well, it's wonderful that you've now become a charismatic enthusiast. Go out, move to Salt Lake City, start your own church, but don't call yourself a bishop of the Anglican Communion. And these guys do what they want to do because they think it's the right thing to do. They make the argument that culture's in favor and all this and that. You've heard it 1,000 times.
Sure.
But they abandoned any pretext of being men and women of God, and they're political actors on a stage.
Hey, listen, it's one of the provinces in our Anglican community that's in complete free fall. If it lasts 6 or 7 years, I'd be surprised. Already, the ACNA has more members than the Church of Canada. Things are not looking good, and I just want to congratulate them for getting what they wanted. On to other news. There's a new Archbishop in Congo that has been elected. One of the things we have, and I speak as a person part of GAFCON, is you don't always have all the provinces you count in GAFCON every day. Sometimes one or two of the provinces will flip, like Tanzania and Congo from time to time, because there's new archbishops, because an archbishop can be convinced to flip, and it's just a reality of what happens on the ground in some very impoverished places like the Congo, George. New archbishop, should GAFCON be happy or sad, or what are the prospects for this new archbishop?
New Archbishop replaces Henry Ngoma. Archbishop Henry's in his late 50s. He's got diabetes. He's been leading the church through a civil war that has claimed almost 1 million lives in the eastern Congo. It's dirt poor. The government is about to, Laurent Kabila, the president for life, who's supposed to be term limited, I guess to one life, has announced that he's going to run again. So we're going to have another outbreak of civil war. And Archbishop Ngoma has decided to step back from the office. He just physically is unable to do it. Now, the man who ran second to him was elected, and he's a decent, honorable, nice fellow. However, he got involved with the AMIA, and about 2 years ago, he agreed to consecrate some of their clergy as bishops. This caused all sorts of grief because the GAFCON said, we're not doing this anymore. And money changed hands, allegedly. I don't know that.
Yeah.
Money changed hands, or all of a sudden this guy found that people he had never met halfway across the globe were now, God had called him to make them bishops, whatever had happened. So there was a flap, and they were made bishops, but then they were sort of cut free from the Congo, who said, "You guys have hello, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye."
Inappropriate bishop, something, something, something. Yeah, that was the strange story we had going for a
So
while.
if this fellow
Irregular.
is buddy buddy with the AMIA, I assume he follows the same sort of theological lines as GAFCON, but it speaks to the difficulty GAFCON has establishing deep roots. They have a very strong theological bench. They have very strong archbishops. It's that second, third, fourth, fifth tier down in the church where the strength is not yet built. Now, Nigeria, no matter who's elected, will never flip. Okay?
Thank you,
Uganda will
Nigeria.
never
We
flip
enjoy that. Yes.
because they have a very solid way through. Kenya, Tanzania, we saw West Africa, Justice Akrofi, Archbishop of West Africa, one of the initial leaders.
Great
Now
example.
that church is in the tech fold. Have they all of a sudden, have the people in Ghana and all those places all of a sudden changed their mind? No. The Archbishop is a genial sort who'll take any money handed to him, and he goes to any place you want to give him a first class airplane ticket, he'll fly to. And Kenya also has that problem because we all know about the Bishop of Nairobi. Uh, so GAFCON's got a challenge ahead of itself of developing deeper roots among these churches to prevent politically oriented coups or flips. But but I think they're going to pick up Congo. I also think they're going to pick up Burundi. I happen to know the new Archbishop Martin Yaboho. He visited my parish in Florida in 2001 when he was Bishop of Makamba, I think. And he was on a fundraising trip to the U.S. and he visited us, preached. We raised a few $100,000 for some schools. And I know Martin, he's a lovely fellow, genial fellow. Burundi, and he's an Orthodox fellow. Burundi is one of the poorest, most violent, racked, politically unstable places on earth, and anybody who wants to help is welcome to help. But when you put Martin in a room with the other GAFCON bishops, he will speak fully on board with them. And he's also the first Hutu bishop. Everyone else has been a Tutsi. So
That's right.
so Burundi has been able to move past the tribalism that has so crippled that part of the world for generations.
All right, we're talking about tech influence and stuff like that. Let's move on to our third topic, and that's conversations. Anybody who's been paying attention to the Church of England since Justin Welby's been on board as the Archbishop of Canterbury has known that he wanted to have something called shared conversations, group conversations, where we get together and we just have a good-hearted discussion about things we disagree on. And for the Church of England, that's been women bishops and the same-sex marriage and same-sex relationships issues. And lo and behold, they've had some conversations now. We got a press release saying that, you're not going to believe this, but it's really kind of working out.
Well, that's a joke. They said before the meeting there would be no statements or documents out of this meeting. And so when the meeting's over, what do? They released a statement.
I am surprised at how well we can talk and have good decisions about hard topics. Yeah, wrong.
I don't wish to be cynical, Kevin, but
Yeah.
I've been down this track with the Episcopal Church. And why do I know how it's going? Well, you look at the budget figures. The Archbishop Council, which is akin to the Executive Council of the Episcopal Church, but not quite, has put out its budget several months ago for the future, and after these shared conversations are over, they're called shared conversations. Now, I wonder what an unshared conversation is, but we won't go there.
Oxymorons, I know.
They've already budgeted for a time of good disagreement. So the outcome, no matter what they discussed, they were going to have good disagreement, which is how we went in the Episcopal Church. So first off, we're going to recognize the intellectual and moral integrity of the gay movement. Then we'll discuss it with them. Then we'll give them a safe space. Then we'll have good disagreement. Then they'll get a majority, and then they'll kick us all out once they achieve power.
I think. Why are you using tech as an example?
Okay,
That's
this is how Lenin operated with the
yes.
Mensheviks. This this is the Russian Revolution. This is October, November 1917.
Yes.
Lenin consolidating power by working through the social revolutionaries and
Uh,
the. Okay, people are not interested in that, I know.
no, no, no.
But
But
Kevin, this process, from an outsider's point of view, there are people, men and women with integrity, who are deeply committed to it, and they think it's wonderful. But from an outsider who's been there, who sees the fact that two of the three staffers running this thing, their salaries are paid by the Episcopal Church, Coventry Cathedral Reconciliation Center, the two assistants are paid by grants from the Diocese of Texas, and I think Virginia.
hold on.
And
But that's the Episcopal Church. Why are they paying?
I don't know. Out of the goodness of their heart, Kevin.
Well, I hope the Archbishop is getting money from GAFCON as well. You got to share the money here, share the expenses.
And they invite an Episcopal women bishop to come to speak to the delegates to synod, and
I'm sure Archbishop Foley was there.
And she says, all is well in the Episcopal Church. We're happy. Everything is, we can agree to disagree. And if you don't agree to disagree, we'll kill you or depose you.
Depose
but
you.
Still, it was happy in Russia in 1937. If you didn't love Stalin, you were dead.
Yes.
And of course, those who were still living loved Stalin because those who didn't were killed. I know I'm being ridiculous, but this whole shared conversation thing is just lacks. It has the same degree of moral integrity as the Canadian House of Bishops does. But,
No, the shared discussion and all that's going to be produced is it's not taking the conservative position versus the liberal position. It's taking the liberal position versus the I don't want to go there yet liberal position. And it's not an equal discussion at all. And if you're not having any GAFCON representatives discussing why there is now a growing, vibrant, alternative Anglican, entity
they
out
had
there.
one Ugandan bishop to come who spoke to the political consequences. And that Ugandan bishop said, "Look, if you guys go with gay marriage, it's over. Communion's over. We won't have anything to do with you." What they did not do is they did not invite any of the scholars from, say, Sydney or Singapore or from Africa who can give the theological arguments. It was a 2-to-1 ratio of two people arguing for change versus one person arguing for the same. And the delegates were not allowed to challenge some of the presuppositions, like the Apostle Paul didn't know what a kind, loving, homosexual modern relationship was. He was writing about something completely different when he wrote about the porneia and the sin of homosexuality. That's different. Now, did they ask Robert Gagnon, one of the greatest scholars on this issue in the United States, to speak to this? No, they didn't. Instead, they assume that the liberal theological rationale is correct, and they don't allow it to be questioned.
Yeah.
It's not my church, it's not my problem, but I just feel so badly because I see how this is going to turn out based upon my own experience in the Episcopal Church over the last 20 years.
It's interesting. I mean, for me, it's good news for GAFCON. The sooner the Church of England and the rest of the Anglican communion dips their toe into the uncharted waters of same-sex marriage, the sooner the other part of the Anglican Church can continue to preach the transforming love of Jesus Christ and continue to have roots that really take off.
Well, Kevin, I don't like it. You know why? At the 1998 Lambeth Conference, I was invited to the Queen's Tea Party. In 2008, you and I were deliberately excluded, and we're never going to get an invitation ever again if we continue beating up on Justin Welby and the Church of England. So am I willing to sell my soul for an invitation to Buckingham Palace?
Of course.
I think a lot of Canadian bishops
Yes, they did. All right, I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and for some reason you have been watching. What is this?
Which episode? Come on, we practiced this, George.
Anglican Unscripted.
39.
39.